About the candidate today.
Oh, that's fine. If he drops it.
I'm like, I don't think I can do that.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm glad you're here. We're going to get started. We have Troop 162 here, and I think Spencer was going to come and get us kicked off. Right, so where are you, Spencer? I see some flyers, but I lost Spencer.
Right here, sir.
Right there. Okay, you're on.
Please stand for the presentation of the colors. Color guard attention. Color guard forward march. Color guard halt. Color guard prepare to post the colors. Color guard post the colors. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2. Color guard reform. Color guard forward march. Color guard at ease, audience at ease.
Guys from 162, thanks for being here this evening. How many of you, this is your first time to be at one of the town hall meetings? Let me see your hands real quick. Oh, that's terrific. Okay, then we'll flip it. How many of you have been to at least one before? Okay, there you go. So you can look around all those veterans that have been here multiple times, at least once. Glad you're here. We have town hall meetings every Tuesday that we have a district work week. So they're every single month. For some folks who may have just gotten an email that we're having a town hall meeting in August, we don't have them just in August. We have them year round. So I'm typically in Washington, D.C. 3 weeks a month, in district 1 week a month. That 1 week I'm in town, we're somewhere in the 3 counties having a town hall meeting. If you don't normally get the email updates on those, you can sign up at lankford.house.gov. That's the website there, and you'll sign up for the email updates, and we will send it out to you. Always get you the location, information about that. We also put it on Facebook and Twitter at Rep Lankford, Rep Lankford, and we'll get that out to you as well. That way, we want to make sure that you get it. But I saw a lot of email traffic from a lot of different groups that were also publicizing the meetings happening in August. That's great. Glad everybody's here, and want you to know you're always welcome to come to any of them that are year-round. They're happening all the time. So great that you're here. I see some folks that are here in the back. I think some staff may be trying to grab you some chairs and stuff and such as we're getting started. I apologize for that. Let me give you basic ground rules for how I do the Tuesday talk times. Couple things that I do with that. One of them is I would say we all respect each other, though we don't all agree. That's pretty obvious that we don't all agree. There are 4 people in my house, my wife, my 2 daughters, and I, and the 4 of us don't always agree. You ought to see us Sunday leaving church trying to decide where we're going to eat lunch, okay? We're all over the map. So we don't always agree on everything, but the one thing we can do is respect each other in the process. And so I'm going to ask any question that comes up or dialogue that comes up that we honor each other, even though we may not all agree on every part of it. Second part of it is this. I'm going to try to get through as many questions as possible. Our staff, as you came through the door, probably handed you a card. If you did not get a card, you can raise your hand, or if you don't want to raise your hand to do that and you point out, then you can try to get with one of our staff and they can get it to you. If you'll fill that card out, then on the back side of it, you can either leave it blank if you don't know what your question is, or write your question down and stick it in there. I'm going to draw it as many as I can. In fact, there's so many people here, I'm not even going to do a beginning part of it. Typically, I spend about 10 to 15 minutes trying to get an update. I'm just going to try to get through as many questions as I can tonight, so we're just going to jump into those questions in just a second. I'll draw out the cards randomly. No one is sorting the cards. Okay, you don't have to worry about any conspiracy theories here, that your card was somehow pulled. Okay, it wasn't. All the cards go in there. I just start randomly pulling them out. I will call your name. When I call your name, you can either say your question if you want to say it. Some people don't like to talk in front of a group, and so if you've written your question on the back, I will read your question off the back. So we can do either one. So if you would rather say it, you have the floor. You can say your question as well, or I'll read it. Is that fair? And we'll just go through as many as we possibly can. Here's our deal as well. At the end, it doesn't look like we're going to get through every question. We try to start at 6, we try to end at 7. And so for those of y'all that are trying to get out of here and go get dinner or whatever it may be, you can just know that we will end at 7. But I'll hang around for quite a while, and my staff will hang around for quite a while. So if we didn't get to your question, hang around, and we'll just try to talk one-on-one, and I'll stay here for quite a while and try to build those questions. If we answered a question like yours, as we go through the bucket after the meeting is over, we'll sort through all the questions we didn't get to. If your topic came up during the course of it, we'll pull that and set that aside and know that was answered. But if you put a question in the bucket that we didn't get to during the meeting, we'll try to write you or call you, or one of our staff will get back to you, or I'll get back to you, whatever it may be, here in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, there's a lot of questions that are here, and so it may take us a while to get back to you, but we want to get to every single question. Again, is that fair? So we want to try to get to as many as possible. My bride is here somewhere. I want you to be able to introduce you. My wife Cindy is right over there, and our youngest daughter Jordan is here. And then we've also got staff scattered all over the room that, as the course of the evening goes on, if you have a question for one of them, or after it's over, if you want to identify them, you can do that. If you're on the staff here, once you raise your hand real quick so they can kind of see you real quick. Okay, you see where they are? They're kind of scattered around the room. I'll have to do this again at the very end. And so if you've got your question, you want to make sure that you get a beeline to them, that you can do that. Okay, is that good? Okay, where's the red bouquet here? It's such a nice bucket. You can't call it a bucket, you have to call it a bouquet. Oh, take it down? Oh, okay. Sorry, let's look at it. That is a little full. Okay, let's have some fun, shall we? Geraldine Burleson. Where are you? Must be present to win. Would you like to say a question? Want me to say it? Okay. Hang on, y'all need to listen. We'll try to get a microphone too. Do we have microphones around? Okay, we'll try to get a microphone too.
We took the names of our students, and my students wrote anywhere from 6 o'clock in the morning until 8 to get to school. Why can't Congress and the Senate be in those seats to take advantage of what's going on now?
Okay,
I don't want to take roll every day, but somebody up in Washington needs to take roll of the Senate and the Congress to make sure they're there when something goes through.
Okay, so to make sure everyone's actually doing that, in a strange way, we actually do that. When we're voting, we each have a voting card, and they keep an exact record of who was voting when they were voting. The only exception of that is when they do what's called a voice vote. We'll have some voice votes on the floor. They don't keep a roll in that one. But every roll call vote, every recorded vote, every single day that we're in session, there is a roll that's kept on that, and you can actually see that on the main website. I'm trying to think of the best website to be able to go to. And it'll show you, for instance, for me, every single vote, any vote that I would have missed, exactly what that was for every single member. I can't remember. Mona, do you remember that site that has a list of every single vote?
Thomas.gov.
The Thomas.gov has every single bill and everything on it. I think it is the Thomas. .loc.gov, if I remember correctly. That is actually based off Thomas Jefferson. Library of Congress is the LOC, and has it. And there's a link on my website on it as well. But ma'am, we should do that because every congressman should be in the chair doing their stuff.
They expect us to be at work every morning.
And should be expected to do it as well. I had to laugh this morning. I was in an early morning meeting today, and so many folks say on August that you're on August vacation for 5 weeks. And I thought I've never gotten up early in the morning, been in an early morning meeting in a time when I'm on vacation, I guess. But this is the nature of it. For us, it's August work period where I'm all over the district the entire time. And so we try to stay connected to people. Tanner Hale. Yes, sir.
I just want to know why our men and women that are serving our country are getting 2 square meals a day.
I can't hear.
Yeah, try to get a microphone right to you real quick, too. It's coming right there to you.
How come our men and women that are serving our country every day are only getting 2 square meals a day, and our congressmen and women are just sitting by and letting it happen? I don't think that's fair.
Are you talking about the breakfast meals in Afghanistan right
Yeah,
now?
I don't think that's very fair.
Is that what you're talking, I'm sorry, the breakfast meals, the hot breakfast that we're talking about in Afghanistan?
The last update that I heard was
Hold on, we always want to honor him.
that only 2 meals were being served to our troops every day, and that just angers me a little bit because I come from a military family, and that just is a bit disrespectful to me.
Yeah. I did check on that about 3 months ago when the first report came out about hot meals. Some units were not doing hot meals in the morning. And I got a report back that they're doing some cold meals because they were in particular units that didn't want to get up and do hot meals, or such a small percentage of them did, but they did have an option to eat. I will go back and follow up on that. I had not seen a report that they're only serving 2 meals a day. I need to tell you, I'm skeptical of that because I know how well our military folks take care of their own. I know exactly how they do that. I have seen all kinds of reports that are out there. Most of the time we've checked in those reports and found they're factually wrong. The military folks that I'm around and the tasks that they're asked to do and what they do for our country burn a tremendous number of calories. So they deserve way more than 2 meals a day, and I'll make sure that we check in on that. But I've not seen a report since that one. That one that I checked on 3 months ago proved to be false. But I will find out. You want me to try to call you back on that one, Tanner, and let you know one way or the other? Okay, we can do that. Merle Polder. Is that right, Merle Polder? Yes, sir. You want to say it? You want me to say it?
Well, I just want to thank you for that. We'll read it and you'll know.
It's actually very nice. No, it actually says, thank you for your Christian stance. May it be reinstated in the military. Yeah, we have. Regardless of what your faith perspective is, our soldiers, our military folks, our Marines, our sailors, they should have the option to be able to practice the faith of their choice or to have no faith at all. That should be their option. They should not be restricted in the practice of their faith. There was a push about 3 months ago. We got the first word on it. Myself and 2 other members actually put together an amendment to one of our defense bills because the DOD was looking to create atheist chaplains. And it's a part of the chaplain's budget. This one we investigated and found out was true. To take part of the budget from the chaplain service to create atheist chaplains. Now, I have to tell you, if a member of the service chooses to be an atheist, they have the right to do that. This is America. They have the right to do that. But we have individuals already, psychologists, sociologists, we have individuals that can take care of the emotional needs of individuals that have no faith. But to pull out of the chaplaincy service part of that budget and create atheist chaplains, we were adamantly opposed to, created an amendment and got that amendment passed in the Defense Act. Jim, is this Gorges, Gorges? Say it again for me, sir.
Gorgeous.
Gorges, thank you, sir. Would you like to say it or want me to say it?
No, I'll do it.
Go for it. There's a microphone coming to you right there, sir.
Congressman, I believe it was during the deliberations and the opinion writing of Roe versus Wade that the Supreme Court found a right to privacy
It's a new creation, right?
in the Constitution. since the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, how do you justify denying law-abiding citizens their privacy by supporting this broad-scale NSA surveillance?
I don't support it, and no, I did not vote for it. You may be referring to the Amasa Amendment that was a part of the defense piece. Is that what you're referring to?
Part of it, sure.
Okay. That's the only vote that's been taken on this at all. Here's the problem. That particular amendment, the issue is really in the intelligence side. The intelligence authorization bill that comes up dealing with the NSA will come up in the fall. That's the right spot to deal with this, so we can really deal with the program in the right way. That particular amendment did two things. One of them is it did a moratorium on that program from October the 1st of this year until September 30th of next year. It didn't stop the program, it did a short moratorium. The second thing it did is it had an instruction from the legislative branch to the judicial branch that in every order they had to have language that we created. Now, I hate to tell you, you can't do that. That's unconstitutional. The legislative branch can't tell the judicial branch how to write their orders, just like the judicial branch can't tell the legislative branch what bills we have to pass. There's separation of powers with that. So in an effort to protect our Constitution, an amendment was written that was not constitutional. The ends don't justify the means. We have to do the right thing the right way. And I know I've taken a lot of flack for standing for the Constitution on that, but we can't say I'm going to protect the Constitution while I deny it. So you can't do that. Read through the text of the actual amendment.
Why didn't you vote for the other bill?
So wait, sir, hold on. Read through the text of the actual amendment. That amendment dealt with that order. We can't do that. So here's what I'm focused in on, and was in a meeting as recently as 2 weeks ago, the last week we were in D.C. trying to deal with how do we resolve this, because there are major issues with NSA. Here's a lot of reporting that's coming out of it. So let me say this to you. Here's what they did, because I've read a lot of the reporting online. I've been through 5 classified briefings on this with very high-ranking folks, and we've asked very difficult questions, some of those with Justin. But we have gone through this process trying to figure out what has occurred, what has not occurred. Here's what we know has occurred. They have collected a list of phone calls that were made from every American, from every provider. And what they've done is they've gone to the providers, AT&T, Verizon, whoever it may be, collected the phone numbers with no names. The phone number, who the phone number called, the duration of the call, and the date of the call. So that's what they collected. They put this in a big master database, no names, put it and locked it out. To access that, they had to have a court order to be able to access that. And here's what they did. If they pick up a phone off of a terrorist in Afghanistan, let's say, for instance, and they determined that on this phone, they were calling American numbers, they went back and could search that database to be able to determine who were they calling and how long were they calling and who else were they calling to see if there was a web that was connected to that. But that's been used 54 times to be able to interrupt 54 different terrorist plots here in the United States that had originated from overseas in the past 8 years. That's documented. That's part of our challenge with this. At the same time, we've got issues like Major Nadal Hassan, who was communicating with a known terrorist overseas, and we didn't catch him. And I've had lots of folks say to me, how could that happen, that he's communicating with this guy overseas, and we didn't catch him? Well, it's the flip side of this whole thing that's happening with the phone record side. So when it breaks out and happens, people say, how come we didn't catch it? When we do catch it and shut down, people say, how can we deal with our privacy? I agree with both, by the way. We've got to be able to protect our privacy. We do not sacrifice our liberties for the sake of additional security on it. We can't do that. So we've got to find ways to be able to protect us and to make sure they're constitutionally
Where's the
consistent.
DEA and the IRS
So,
getting their information from the NSA?
sir, sorry, I only deal with questions that are being drawn. That's respect for everyone. So that's what we're trying to deal with. Is that straightforward enough?
So far we haven't
So
done
that's why this is not a finished product. That single amendment is not the big amendment, or not the big bill to try to resolve the whole thing. That was a vote dealing with the appropriations piece that only did a short-term moratorium that did have serious constitutional concerns. You're giving me this look like, I'm not sure.
Transcript, not your answer to analyze that.
I tell you what we can do. I wrote a letter personally, following up the folks that did this. I can get you the letter that has all the details on it, and you can actually go to that Thomas website and see the actual amendment. The amendment's fairly short, and you get a chance to see the actual amendment, so you can see the text and see the same thing I'm seeing on that. Would that be fair? You should check with one of our staff, and we'll make sure that we get them to you. And for anyone else on that wants all the details and the facts, check with us, and we'll be glad to be able to get you all that background information since we're done. Ruth Neiman. Right, there, yes ma'am, you want to say it or you want me to say it? Is there a chance the environmentalist will a delay in the completion, there it is, will influence, create a delay in the completion of the Keystone Pipeline. They already have. Let me get just basics on the Keystone Pipeline because it's incredibly frustrating. The southern leg of the Keystone Pipeline is already under construction. That's from Cushing to the Gulf. That's done. A typical pipeline to get permission and to work through the process, if we're crossing a border, is between 20 and 40 months if you're crossing an international boundary. This pipeline currently has taken longer to permit than the previous 3 international pipelines combined. So to say, will they get a delay? They already have gotten a delay. What does the Keystone Pipeline do? It brings in enough oil from Canada to replace Venezuela entirely, as far as our oil supply. Why is this such a big deal? Well, we seem to get along better with Canada since the War of 1812 was settled than we do with Venezuela. And at any point in time, if Venezuela decides to cut us off, we'll all deal with much higher prices. When that exact same oil that we could bring in from Canada would replace that, it goes into Gulf Coast refineries that are currently receiving Venezuelan oil. This is very significant for us in our own security. We are at a moment as a nation that we've talked about for 40 years. For 40 years, we have said we should be energy independent. And it seemed like some distant pipe dream until the last 5 years. And the technology that's come online with fracking, with horizontal drilling, and the geology and the science that they've been able to find in different spots has created a revolution in finding natural gas and oil. We don't understand how big this is until you get into some of these finds and understand we have more capacity now than we had 30 years ago in proven reserves. It's as if we've used nothing. Okay, so it's unbelievable what we continue to find on it. So it is very important to us that we have a consistent North American supply first, and then move to an American-only supply that if we want to buy from other countries, we can, but we don't have to. So it allows that rebalance. Another quick thing, a lot of heat was made about the Keystone Pipeline running through that aquifer in Nebraska. I wish I had the map with me. I used to carry it around for a while when it was being talked about a lot. There are thousands of miles of pipeline already in that aquifer. It's a misnomer that, oh my gosh, we're going to run a pipeline through an aquifer. They make it sound like we're floating a pipeline right through the middle of the water. Okay, the aquifer is deep underwater. The pipeline is about 10 feet under the ground. Okay, they're not connected in one. Number two, we've got thousands of miles of pipeline already running above that aquifer. Number three on it, it's the safest pipeline ever been done. The safety regulations just changed in 2011. For all pipelines, it will be the safest one that's ever been constructed. So it's a very big deal. Melissa, I'm not going to take questions outside of these questions. I do have respect for all of us. Melissa Teal. Where are you, man? Melissa Teal. Yes, ma'am. You want to say it or you want me to say it? You want me to read it? Okay. It says, will you vote to defund Obamacare, but fund the rest of government? Let me start with the basic record on this. I've already done 40 votes to take out sections of Obamacare. 40. So far, we've gotten, I think, 3 of those through the Senate. And a lot of folks were surprised by that because it looks like we've gotten 0 through. We've gotten 3 of those through the Senate. starting back with January of 2011, when we first got there dealing with the 1099. You remember the 1099 requirement? That's an Obamacare that required every individual, not only every business, to not only report the taxes they paid, but the purchases that they did as a business. And reporting to the IRS those purchases created a whole new system of reporting. We got that repealed right off the bat, and then we have struggled our way through. We've reduced funding in multiple different areas, including the slush fund for Obamacare. That's this additional preventative service fund that's $8 billion. They continue. We've reduced that amount. We've reduced the amount for the iPad. We've reduced the amount for what's called the class part of it. Several sections. There's 8 different segments that we'll be able to get rid of. So it's been a very slow, tedious process. The most recent vote on that was the last day that we were in D.C. dealing with the IRS. Here's my problem. The problem is strategy. The focus on the budget issues have been how do we get us back into balance? When I came in 2011, my first mandate was to get us back in balance. When the deficit, when I got there, was $1.5 trillion a year when I got there in 2011. This year, it's just a little bit over $600 billion. Now that's a $900 billion amount that we've made progress on in 2 years, or 2.5 years. Most folks don't know that and don't see it because we never talk about the things that we're winning on. This year and last year, 2 years in a row, I get this, real spending in federal dollars, not this goofy Washington math, real spending has gone down 2 years in a row in Washington, D.C. The last time that happened was right at the end of the Korean War. We have made real progress, and my first focus is to get us back in balance. My second focus is to protect the people of this district from the harmful effects of Obamacare. I'm in a quandary on this one, because I want to make sure, because our focus for the last several months has been focused in on what can we do to protect the reduction of spending that we've got locked into place, and to continue to push on that. But I'm also going to try to focus on Obamacare. I can't tell you how that's going to balance out at the end because I have zero confidence in the Senate actually holding to that, and I don't like the concept of a government shutdown. I'm just going to tell you flat out. I'm going to tell you why. Here's my issue with why. When we get to that government shutdown, it's not like the 1990s. And a lot of folks get very nostalgic about the 1990s shutdown. In the 1990s, that shutdown occurred after the House and the Senate had already passed over half of its appropriations bills. Military had already been funded, security had already been funded, border had been funded, all those things had already been done. So when they did a government shutdown, we were making all kinds of noise about the national parks not being open and stuff like that, because there was the last areas that were still not funded, like Interior. That's not so anymore. When we do a government shutdown now, it's everything, because the Senate's done 0 appropriations bills. So here's our struggle. 2011, when we approached the government shutdown, I was the one getting emails from soldiers in Afghanistan who were informed by their wife that they just got a note from DOD saying next month you won't be paid or you'll be paid less because we're having a government shutdown possibility. I'm the one answering the emails from soldiers saying, I can't come home right now and fix this. How come I won't get paid?
Bring them home.
So,
Bring them home. Bring them home.
We're going to try to honor people in this. So my struggle is this the right strategy to solve it? I believe it's the right strategy to solve our budget and deficit.
Don't pay your electric bill.
My issue is how do we resolve the Obamacare focus, because we've got to get that resolved as well. We're not done. We've got multiple other votes and multiple other moments coming up. We're not stopping on this. But I have a real issue. Here's the second part of this, then I've got to go into other questions. When you deal with funding aspects, Obamacare, all the prelim stuff is already done. They've done it for the last 3.5 years. So it's done. So when you get to October the 1st, you're not dealing with all the setup anymore. The law is still sitting there. Defunding doesn't take away the law. It takes away the dollar amounts to it. And specifically, it takes away $13 billion of discretionary funding, leaving $71 billion in mandatory funding that'll still go towards it. So if anyone tells you it kills all of Obamacare to defund it at one moment, it's not factually true. I wish it was. I wish it was that quote-unquote easy. It's not. The law still remains. $13 billion is taken away, and $71 billion is still sitting there.
Well, the fact
So
that
we've
we're
got to be able
$85
to
billion
resolve
bucks,
this to
so
be
it
able to
shouldn't
get
be a
this
problem.
done. Sir, I can't tell you who's going to talk, but I really want to honor everybody here. If you want to ask a question afterwards, you're
Honor
welcome
us
to do
with
that.
the truth,
But I'm going to
that's
ask
all
you.
I'm asking.
Please leave if you can't be respectful.
Everyone needs to listen.
We're past respectful.
This is where I started. We're not going to all agree on everything, but we can honor each other.
But we
That's
voted
the
to
first
put you in
basic part
office
of
to
it.
represent us, and you're not representing us.
Say that, shake him out. We're going to honor each other in this process. Joy Harlan. Where's Joy?
It's a public place, and I'm here to allow to stay like you are, so I get to stay too.
We're all here for the same reason.
Hold on. Do you want to ask a different question? We'll see if you can bring a microphone to you. Is that all right? Okay.
Obamacare
glare a
was
little
wasted
harder?
upon us by Nancy Pelosi during Reagan presidency.
That's correct.
And now Congress has exempted themselves,
Oh.
is what I heard, and their staff. And the president keeps saying that if you have your health insurance, you can keep it, premiums will increase. Well, my son got notice from his agent. He's self-employed, in his early 30s, trying to make a living for his family. His premiums are going to go from $275 a month to $825 a month. Tell me what about that is affordable health care?
Right.
And why does the president continue to lie to the
Okay.
American people?
All right, that's a great question. A couple of things on that, on those two questions. One is, what your son has received, a lot of people will receive in the days ahead. There are a couple things that are that are baked in the cake with Obamacare. One of them is they changed the ratio from the top to the bottom from 6-to-1 differential to 3-to-1 differential. That may sound like no big deal, but what that does is that takes the youngest Americans and dramatically increases their premium. At the same time, they're being forced to buy, and some of them don't have it now, because when you're 27 years old, you feel like you're going to live forever. And so they delay to be able to get it. So they don't have it, but by law, they're now required to get it, and it's 3 or 4 times more expensive than it was last year because of that change. There will be a lot of that pressure that will come on a lot of folks. And there'll be a lot of folks, especially younger Americans, that will be stunned by it. Let me give you one other thing. Because insurance is required to be covered for someone who's 26 years old or younger on an adult. So let's say I've got a child, which I don't, that's 25 years old. And she's going to actually be responsible and pay for her own insurance rather than me having to do it. So, but my employer is mandated to cover me, my wife, and my child who's 25 years old based on new law. She's out working in another state. She declines to get coverage on that company. She'll actually be punished for it by not taking the subsidy from mine. The laws are so convoluted in the process that it's just a mess when you go through it. So there's a lot of it that we're trying to push back on. The president removed by fiat, he removed the mandate on the businesses to say that they're not going to have to pay the penalty if they don't cover everybody. What he really did with that is to say to individuals, the business is not required to cover you, but you as an individual, if you're not covered, you're still required to have coverage, so you've got to go out to the exchanges now and get it. They have got to get more people on the exchanges. They've got to have a minimum of 7 million people on the exchange to make the numbers work for them. And so this whole thing about we're going to remove the mandate for businesses really sounds great for the businesses, but they left it for the individuals and forced them into the exchanges faster, which will be much more expensive. So there's all kinds of problems with that. And I've heard multiple things on the congressional piece. Let me give you the facts and the figures on the coverage for Congress.
Make it quick.
Congress has we're like most employers, I don't know what your coverage is. As an employer, they pay 75%, I pay 25% of my premium. Some people have 60-40, some people have 80-20, some people have 90-10, whatever it may be for you, whatever your business is. So ours is 75-25. That's what it's been since the time I'm there. When Obamacare came in, by law, all of us are kicked off the federal insurance and we're kicked into the exchanges. So I will be mandated to leave the federal insurance January the 1st, and so will all the staff, and we're mandated to go in the exchanges. What was in dispute was the 75-25 split, whether that would still be there. That's the only thing that came out about 3 weeks ago, was will they still do the 75-25 split, or will we have to pay 100% for it? That was the only thing that changed on it. I'm still in the exchanges. All of the staff are still in the exchanges. But they still will do the 75-25 split, so I'll cover 25% of whatever that's going to be, of whatever options come out on the exchanges starting October the 1st. They still haven't announced even the exchanges, and there's still multiple areas of the country that this healthcare marketplace has one option in it. One. Multiple areas of the country on this. So it's going to be a really major issue.
Medicare for everybody.
Urson Dimerick? Is that right? Urson Dimerick?
Yes, but I don't have any question.
Okay.
Just say hi.
There you go. Robert Siemens. Where, Robert? Yes, sir. You want to read it? You want me to say it? Or you want to say it? You want me to read it?
I'll say it, Congressman. I pay a lot of attention to the New American Freedom Index because I'm always interested in how my legislator is voting as weighed against the Constitution. They currently have you in your total for 2 terms, I think at around 70% voting with the Constitution. Tom Cole is about 56%. So you're a lot better than Tom Cole, but Jim Bridenstine's 100%.
Yeah.
I would like for you to go hang out with Jim Bridenstine.
Yes, sir.
Do you happen to know what the votes are? Robert, do you happen to know what the votes are that they picked for that?
It's all available in newamerican.com. I think it is.
Here's why I say that. It's always interesting to me, the votes they picked and the interpretation of those. I've been in several of those key voting times, and I see all the indexes. Everybody's got their own index. They're all over the place on it. And I'm always interested in the reasons why and what they do with it. And so, for instance, I don't know if this piece with the NSA is suddenly a vote against the Constitution when I have to vote to redefine
Yes, it is.
What it is.
Yes, it is.
I'd be interested in how I'm protecting the Constitution by violating on rules like that.
You're not violating anything. Stick to the Constitution, pal.
Violating our rights.
That's it.
If there's some perception that I'm supportive of the NSA policy,
Yes.
Then why didn't you end it?
Why did you vote for the Patriot Act?
I'm not going to deal with questions that are just shouted out.
Yeah, right. Don't deal with it.
Harry B. Wright. Yes, sir. Can I see that hand back there? Read it? Okay. What role did Congress have in the exemption of members of staff from the provisions of the Affordable Care Act? And was it a vote taken? How was the delegation? Did I answer that question before?
No.
Not exactly.
Okay, give me a clarification of what I can help.
Actually, the thing I was curious about is if Congress did have any involvement in it, if there were votes taken, how Oklahoma's delegation vote on it, or if it was just imposed.
There was neither on that. There was not a vote on it. There's a group called the Office of Personnel Management. The Office of Personnel Management is a government-wide office. Many of you have dealt with them. If you have any federal employee background in any office, you're very familiar with the tremendous efficiencies of the Office of Personnel Management. Okay? The Office of Personnel Management had not given instructions on how they were going to do the 75-25 split if that was the same. There was no vote on it. There was no anything else. The only vote that occurred was actually in 2009 when there was a vote to require members of Congress and their staff to be in Obamacare in the exchanges, which we are in the exchanges. The only thing that came out was the 75-25. Now, I saw all the same stuff that you did, and I just thought, there's no change on that. It's exactly the same. It's just a statement that came out. How is that going to be handled? Is it handled the same as it has been done, or is it different? So it's handled the same. Is it Hamid Darby? H-A-M-I-D-D-A-R-A-B-Y?
I was wondering, why would the government spend so much money in making something like marijuana that grows out of the ground legal through the 40s, and why would they make it so much so if they didn't have an intention for hemp? And there's so much we can make from hemp. There's so much fuel, there's so much medicine, there's all these kinds of things that we can do from hemp, and they're specifically saying no, 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 when obviously we can have so much benefit from that. Just because people get high from it doesn't mean that it's bad. I mean, cheeseburgers are bad for you, but are they illegal?
Depends on whether you're in New York or not. Let me just say personal perspective, and I'm a little biased on this. I've worked with students for 22 years, and so I come through the lens of working with teenagers and students for a long time. I've seen a lot of families messed up. by students getting involved in drugs of all types.
Yeah, but my
I-
point isn't drugs. My point is hemp.
I understand, but you talked about getting high on something, that usually involves a drug.
Right.
Am I correct on
It
that?
isn't anything to do with the THC. Actually, it doesn't get you high at all.
So I don't think we're talking about rope or tattoos at this point, are we?
We're talking about, it could be.
Hemp.
I mean, there's a lot of corporations that will cease to exist if hemp was legalized. That is why it's actually illegal. People think it's because they get high.
There is, okay, I would say we may be talking about two different issues. If you'll hang around afterwards, we can get a chance to clarify on it. I would be absolutely opposed to the legalization of marijuana nationwide. There are a lot of issues that are connected to that. It is.
Cheeseburgers legal too then.
Didn't we repeal the 18th Amendment though?
So then the issue of medicinal use, of medical use, as far as for medicine, not for an individual out smoking on their own. If we're dealing with hemp in a controlled commercial environment, that's a different animal than it is without on the street. Does that make sense? Is it Tony Samani? S-A-M-A-N-I-E? Yes, ma'am. Hey there.
Hi. Well, my first question on there was, obviously we have a lot of disagreement here. We're very upset.
On what's up?
On everything. The way the government has ruined our lives. We're for limited government.
Yeah.
Restoring constitutions. And basically, one of the things I wanted to know was on the, Justin Amash said the Intelligence Committee withheld key files before critical NSA vote. Amash claims. How do you address that when our own representatives are calling foul and it's being ignored by the people of the status quo? We're tired of the status quo.
You see, by the way, I agree with Justin on that. Because here's what happened. They sent, the NSA sent a letter to, a classified letter to us to notify us of how they were handling this. That we were never signaled to our office or any other office other than members of the Intelligence Committee. They were the only ones that were notified of that. But that letter was not written to the Intelligence Committee. It was written to all members of Congress. So Justin's absolutely correct on that point. We did have information withheld from us. There are major issues on this. My point is, there's a right way to fix it, and there's a wrong way to fix it. I want to fix it the right way, and I want to make sure that it's actually fixed.
Stick to the concept.
So that's my. Well, let me give you several. One of them is, why are we collecting this information? The actual phone companies already have that information. Why are we just asking the phone companies to hang on to it? And if we have to get a court order to come back to it, that's no different than what a current court order is now. There's also no citizen advocate that's involved in this process. There's a FISA court that's involved in it that no one has access to other than the intelligence committees. There's no citizen advocate that represents me. There's no reason the government should have my mom's phone records to be able to pull that and not have someone actually speaking out for my mom if no one else has access to that. My mom is not a terrorist.
That's right.
That amendment did not fix that. That amendment did a 12-month moratorium on it and had a challenge with the Constitution about mandating another branch of government to have an order on it. There's a way to fix it, that we should fix it. But in the middle of this, here's our challenge. 2 months after we go through this, if we've got a group of dead Americans because of a phone call that came in that we should have tracked, we'll lost all of ours.
I'll take my chances.
That wouldn't work.
Yeah. We'll take our chances. Hey, you got a group of dead Americans in Benghazi.
Scared. That's how our rights get taken away. It's the same thing that Hitler used in Germany. Take away the guns, take away everything.
I wouldn't do either. I'm not trying to
happening.
scare.
That's the thing, Congressman.
I'm
It's
trying to say that is a reality and we know it. That if that event ever comes, and God forbid it does.
Lightning is
Sir?
more dangerous than a terrorist.
Sir, can we ask some more questions there? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, something softer, easier to answer.
Jerry Ruth. Okay. question, I'm going to no name, and I don't answer anonymous questions, it's a given. Alex Haley.
That's me.
Howdy.
Howdy. You've already addressed the Obamacare issue, so I will try to recall exactly how I wrote the next question.
You want to see it as a reminder?
No, that's fine. Best way I can, I think, phrase it is to give me your answer like I'm a 4-year-old, without any emotion as to, well, we need to do it because it's the right thing, and without any rhetoric like, well, it's broken, we have to fix it. I'd like you to give me the hard evidence why America needs to admit millions of illegals that we don't even know who they are into this country. And when you finish telling me why, then why do we have to do it right now? That's my question.
Yeah.
We shouldn't admit someone that we don't know who they are. Let's be a given. We are a nation of laws, and we should follow the law, and we should stand for the law. But your precursor statement there about we shouldn't say it's broken, we should fix it and all that. Can you tell me our current immigration system is working well now?
It's not very important. I don't know, and I can't report to you what our immigration system is now. I haven't read up on that, and I should have.
That's okay.
But my understanding is there is one.
Yeah.
But it's not being enforced. My understanding is that whatever is in place now involves deportation, the best way to say this is to say it plainly, and it's not disrespectful to you or to anyone here. My idea of what this country should be doing is what most countries, almost all countries in the world do. We don't look up tomorrow when we're in Lowe's and see Spanish, and we're invaded.
Boo. Boo.
I feel invaded. I used to go to the car wash, and there were high school kids working there. I go to the car wash now, and there are, if we're supposed to call them Latinos now,
Supposed to call them people.
but I believe, because I see it every day, and I see, and the reason I say that we don't know them, because I ID, and I've seen them have social security numbers in different names. I'm only saying what I saw, and it terrifies me because I have the link to it. What's happening in Arizona, and of course it's worse here, that's okay, I can talk like this. We've got dismembered bodies in Range Rovers sitting on the side of the road. We've got skinned heads in theaters. This is in New Mexico. This is in Arizona. We've got a boy working at the Burger King who was convicted in Mexico of raping a 4-week-old baby to death. This is horrible. And I don't, we have people that stand back here sometimes in caps and gowns. That's fine. I've talked to those people. One of them was in school. Nobody had graduated. 3 could not speak English. It's just, that's it. That's all. Sorry for taking that much time.
No, I understand. Listen, the challenge that we have in immigration is this is a very emotional issue for everybody that's in it, for everybody, on both sides of it. So this is not one of those issues that we're trying to pick the paint color around a wall that everyone says, I don't have a preference on it one way or the other. Everyone's very passionate about it. I am going to tell you a statement that you said don't say, and I'm going to say it to you as well. The system is messed up, and it's messed up under Republicans and under Democrats.
That's fine.
The reason we have this problem right now is because the law has not been enforced for years. That's a consistent issue. So because of that, we have now birthed this issue. I found, and I've made a comment to a staff member earlier today, the 2.5 years that I've been in Congress, most of the issues that we voted on are fixing the things that Congress broke with a previous vote years ago. Almost all the issues we dealt with, whether that's budget, whether that's immigration, whether that's No Child Left Behind, and the messed up system that it has become, it's one after another of things that Congress did in the past that we're still voting to fix now. This is one of those. It's because of bad votes, and it's also because of bad enforcement. So, but we have this whole issue, so what do you do with it? That's the challenge now. Now there's no good options, any direction that you want to go with it. So now we're trying to figure out a couple of things. One is personal perspective for me. I believe every person is created in the image of God and has value, regardless of where they were from, regardless of who they are. Every person. The second thing is, I believe every person is a citizen of some country. And in that country, they have unique rights and responsibilities. And in every other country, they're a guest. They do not have the same rights and responsibilities. It's different for them. If I'm traveling and working in another country, I don't walk in that country, demand that I have the same rights as citizens. I don't. I'm a guest in that country. Even if I was invited to be able to work in that country for a short period of time, I'm a guest in that country. So now it's a big issue of what do we do from there. To me, that's the lens that we've got to start with. So starting with the law. The 5 bills that we've already done through the House of Representatives. And by the way, I've seen the Senate version. We're not going to bring up the Senate version. We're not going to vote on the Senate version. That's not going to happen. 5 bills we brought up in the House. All deal with security. Our first priority is how do you deal with security? The most difficult part of security is how do you actually verify it? How do you verify you're in a secure environment? There are some folks that would say, we're going to have 100% verification, we're going to have the Senate version had a Border Patrol agent every 1,000 feet or whatever it was. It's insane. That's not going to really happen. That's never really going to be implemented. We've got to find a way to be able to figure out how to secure it, trust the person that's securing it, trust the verification process. That's what we've gone through. Interior security, 40% of the people that are here illegal came under a legal visa, and they overstayed that visa. Whether it's a student visa, tourist visa, work visa, 40%. And we don't know where they are, we don't know who they are, because we don't have an exit program, we have an entrance program. We don't have an exit. So that's a big issue for us. That's still 40% of it. 60% of the folks came over the border, we don't know who they are either. So the first basics of this is we've got to find out who's actually here. So a way to be able to figure out who's here, who they are, background checks, all the basics, that's got to be done so we actually even know who's here. So I don't have a problem for me personally with a non-citizen, very important, a non-citizen doing a biometric so we can establish a baseline. You may give us 5 names, but we have a baseline for who this individual is because we have a biometric on them. I have a big problem if that's an American citizen because I think that violates constitutional rights. But not for a non-citizen. It's the same thing that if you come across the border, we're going to fingerprint or we're going to eye scan you right now already. So.
I have a question about that. How would you do biometrics and just pick out the illegals and not have the citizens scanned? And how would you get people coming over the border to stick their thumb out and do the...
They can't even catch them as it is.
They're already doing it.
Because the first things first. We have to establish this as border security.
But there's no, I guess what my question is, does anybody in the House of Representatives that you know of have any idea what might be done to secure the border in the next 6 months? I mean, in the next 6 months, can we bring the people from Afghanistan?
I want to keep moving. I need to send you a copy of the bill that we've gone through the House with Homeland Security and our Judiciary. Get you a copy of those with a synopsis of what we've already done. We're in no hurry in this process. It's going to be done. It has to be done right, and it has to have full input of people. That's why we've done 5 bills already through committee. We'll have other bills we'll take up through committee and do this the right way as we walk through the process on it. Let me get a copy of those to you. I want you a chance to see it and see how we do verification. We've had wide support on that.
I just think people are afraid that it's going to go to committee to the Senate, something's going to be whipped through, and then we're going to all be...
I totally understand that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Dax Inbank.
Right here.
Hey!
So,
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that the NSA
I got a letter from you regarding the NSA program,
Okay.
and you claim that they weren't collecting anything that you couldn't find in a phone book. Basically, that's what.
No, I didn't put that in my letter. Michelle Bachmann has that out personally, but I did not put that in my letter.
Initial reports led Americans to believe that the NSA keeps the contents of each call as well, but that information has proven to be completely false.
That is in my letter.
Okay. It's not completely false. The DEA and the IRS have just been found that they are getting information from the NSA as to tips to bust domestic criminals, and then they are taught to do what's called a parallel investigation where they cover up how they got the information. So the DEA and the IRS are getting information from the NSA and using it to frame American citizens and then lying about where they got the information, Congressman. This is what is happening. Now, what happens if the government becomes politically against my belief system or my lifestyle?
Yeah.
What happens?
Yeah.
The NSA gives a tip to some jackbooted thug who doesn't care about me or my family and will kick my door down for the fun of it. And they've done it. They've done it. And I want it to stop. That's why I'm so angry. That's why I don't accept this idea. I do not accept this idea that we need to wait for 2 years when you guys figure out what to do. It needs to end now.
Yeah.
And then you figure out what to do.
Read the Fourth Amendment. All of it. You got no right.
The DEA and the IRS address that particular issue.
Here's what I'd like to do. I saw some internet reports from them as well.
Don't tell me it's not true. I mean, everything that I bring up, you say, well, it's just not true. Everything that anybody brings up, you say it's just not true. And then you say it's classified.
I'm not going to say it's classified. I'm going to tell you, I've sat in multiple classified briefings. We've gone through with multiple folks with NSA to find out what they have, what they don't have, what they do, what they don't do.
They lie. They're telling you the truth.
Never lied before Congress.
That's what I was about to say. There's no way that I'm going to convince you very upset about this. And if that was happening, I'd be just as ticked off as well.
But you can do it. You are in charge of the purse strings. Congress is in charge, and we were 16 votes away from taking away their funding.
And where'd you vote?
Next question.
That's assuming Harry Reid's going to pick that up and he's going to run that. You think Harry Reid was going to run with that?
Well, then shut the government down because you guys don't know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Give him a song. Give him a song. Don't call my name.
Running close on time. Where is that, Jenna Harlow?
Stick around, Jim. We got plenty of time.
Jenna Harlow. Sir? Yes, ma'am. You want to bring Mike? You want to read it? You want to say it? Or you want me to read it?
Actually, remember this town hall when we get to Washington.
Okay.
I'm a small business owner, and I just wanted to know, you've kind of touched on it, but what your thoughts are on immigration reform, what your thoughts are on amnesty, and also the border security, and how that's going to affect us as business owners.
Okay. Can you, I say this way, can you narrow that down and tell me what you mean by that? Because there's a lot that, okay, I'm adamantly opposed to amnesty. That was pretty clear. So what else can I say? Okay.
What are you going to do?
That's what I need to send you a copy of the bill. But what we try to walk through in the border security is very specific. The biggest challenge of this is verification. The Senate version verification is the Department of Homeland Security verifies that the border is secure. I absolutely do not trust the Department of Homeland Security to verify that the border is secure. Okay, I'm completely opposed to that because we have an issue on the rule of law. And I visit with folks that are here illegal, and I'm looking in the face and saying, here's my issue. You're asking to become the head of folks that have waited 10 years overseas. And that's not right. You're asking to be ahead of folks that have green cards, that have gone through the process the right way. And I'm not going to do that. We have a rule of law that need to be followed. And we've got to be able to walk through a process that is a consistent rule of law. Now with that, is our system completely messed up? Yes, it is. It's completely messed up. We have the most generous legal immigration system in the world. right now. We already do. We legalize 1 million people a year in the United States. 70% of those are based on family connection. No other country in the world does that but us. We're it. So our issue is we've got to look at what's in the best interest for Americans long term. So the first thing that we've got to do is look at our legal system and to say, do folks need to come in based on just family connections, or do folks come in based on economic benefit to the country as a whole?
Yeah.
I think the first standard is economic benefit to the country as a whole.
How about merit?
We've got to flip that process on it. So that's part of the issue. Now, that doesn't mean you're including family. I'm not going to have somebody, for instance, that's a scientist from India that could really do a great benefit to one of our tech companies here that has unique skills. I'm not going to ask him to come and say, but your wife can't come. Okay, that's not right. We're not going to do that. So there should be some family connection, but our first priority should be economic benefits to the nation as a whole. And we've got to be able to solve this because individual companies are competing with people that have illegal labor. And until we get this resolved, we continue to have depressed wages on this, and we've got to have that level playing field or it's not fair. So that's where I'm coming from. Let me make a couple comments on some things. Just to give you a heads up on several things. And then I'm going to hang around for a while afterwards. We didn't mention Benghazi. So you did on your card case. Let me mention this. Benghazi is still ongoing.
Good.
We are rapidly approaching the 1 year. The committee that I serve on, and Oversight and Government Reform, is the committee that's walked through this process, and we have not stopped. Neither have we stopped with Fast and Furious. Fast and Furious.
Yeah!
Fast and Furious was the first set of hearings that I walked into in January of 2011, and they have not quit. Now, here's the challenge of it. We get used to seeing hearings on TV and some court hearing, and we lose track of the fact there was 2 years of depositions leading up into that and all this fact gathering and then the big public hearing that happens. In Congress, it doesn't happen that way. You'll do a hearing over a specific set of issues, then you'll do depositions and all that testimony for a while, then there'll be another hearing, and then you'll do deposition for a while, so it's rolling. So the perception was the hearing happened, doesn't that resolve it? No, it does not resolve it. That continues to move forward on it. In addition to that, the administration has slow walked getting documents to us that we have not stopped going through the process of. Eric Holder is still in contempt of Congress. This is still working through the judicial process. We did a civil lawsuit and a criminal lawsuit. The criminal lawsuit has to be prosecuted by someone who works for Eric Holder. No kidding. Okay? That's why we walk through the civil side as well, because we want to have both aspects of it. That is still working through the judicial system. You know how slow that is. So that has not been dropped. The Benghazi statements, there are multiple areas that we still have critical information that the administration refuses to release. We will not stop until it is released. We continue to identify whistleblowers. Here's the reason this is significant, because I've had multiple folks say, get over it, it's over, it's done. We're not going to get over it.
The president has committed treason.
We're not going to get over it, it's not done. Let me give you the basics on it. Number one is this. In 1998, when our embassies were bombed in Tanzania and in Nairobi, Kenya, after that, there was an accountability review board that came out with specific recommendations for every facility, all of our State Department facilities worldwide, minimum standards that had to be achieved. That was done in 1999. All those were changed. There's a handful of facilities that didn't meet that minimum criteria. Tripoli was one of them. Benghazi was the other one. The only way State Department personnel can occupy a facility that does not meet the Accountability Review Board standards set in 1999 is if they have a direct signature from the Secretary of State to occupy that facility. That is the only way to do that. Okay, so that's number one. That has been signed off. Number two is this. We still do not know all the process, and we're getting very, very much closer to this. A lot will come out in September, October, November in the next set of hearings. We still don't know the stand-down order. It is unlike our Defense Department to see a fight going and they'll not go to it. So we're in the final processes of all the interviews to establish, were they told to stand down, or were they just waiting for the order that never came? We've got to resolve this because we can't do this again. Our personnel were put in a facility that did not meet the minimum standard. They had a minimal amount of physical security, gun-toting security there. That security was taken away in August, and then those individuals were killed in September. We're still asking the question, why was that decision made? Now, we're closer to who made it. Patrick Kennedy is the gentleman in the Department of State, who's the Undersecretary of Management, is the one who made the decision, passed it on to the lady Charlene Lamb that works below him. She has resigned, but he has remained. And we're asking the question, why he's still there, that he gave the order, and she's gone, when she's the one that just fulfilled the order. That's not right on it. And so we're still working through that process. That has to be resolved. And then the final details of actually what happened on that night has not been established. We cannot say this will not happen again when it did happen again. This is almost identical to what occurred in 1998 in our two embassies there. According to the Accountability Review Board, the same breakdown in security happened here as it did there. So again, it goes back to, we're just going to make sure it doesn't happen again. This is a second time that this has occurred. So we cannot have a third. We have folks that are very patriotic folks serving all over the world, representing us. Their families that are here deserve to know that we're doing our best to guard them. So that needs to be in process.
You do it.
So that's one last thing I need to mention to you as well, and that's the IRS.
Get rid of them. Get rid of them.
Here's the
Gotta
issue.
go.
When we walk through all the IRS issues, there's a multitude of them. And right now, the Democrats, I know there's some of y'all here that are here there tonight are Democrats. We have a divided district, I get that, but I'm telling you, some of the Democrats on the Hill are throwing out things to add confusion to it. If you would slow down and look at facts, rather than some of the confusion that's being thrown out, you would understand that, yes, there were some progressive groups that were also on what was called the Be on the Lookout list, the BOLO list. There were also conservative groups that were on the Be on the Lookout list. The difference was the progressive groups on the BOLO list were on the BOLO list, and then they were passed on. It was completed for them. The conservative groups were on the BOLO list, and they were actually delayed, stalled, failed to give answers. Some of them were right here in this district. I have read through some of the information and know very well the Tea Party applications that were put in from my district and some of the questions they were asked. They were asked from folks in this district by IRS. They were asked, did you meet with any elected official? What's the transcript of your conversation? Now, you tell me if that's constitutional.
No.
So there's just page after page after page of questions like that were added to this. So we're pushing back on all this. We do know now that it wasn't a group of rogue agents from Cincinnati, as it was initially reported.
No, it came from the White House.
There was a group in Cincinnati that was fulfilling what they were told from the Washington, D.C. office. We have interviewed now in a hearing the Cincinnati rogue agent. We affectionately called her throughout the course of the hearing, and we kept asking her, do you feel rogue? And she said, I don't feel rogue. I was doing what I was told to do by Washington. We brought in the Washington folks that were giving her instructions, who said to us, I was doing what I was told to do and was waiting on instructions from the counsel's office in the IRS, which is the only politically appointed office in the IRS.
Duh.
We are continuing to work through the process. Right now, there are interviews ongoing with the political offices with the IRS. This has not stopped. We're in that phase in between, where there's a hearing, then you do all your investigations. Then there's a hearing, and you keep building on from there. We're at that spot right now, so this will continue to go. This is important because whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, the government should be neutral to everyone's political beliefs and to allow people to be left alone.
They can't be with a Muslim president.
Who's going to prison?
It is after 7 o'clock.
No.
Oh, yeah,
We're adults. We got no curfew. Let's keep talking.
Where's Tom? So you got to work perfectly. You are working perfectly. Tom, thanks for allowing. Tom's the superintendent here of Francis Tuttle. Thanks for allowing us to invade. You're great. If you are not familiar with Francis Tuttle, and if you're from Oklahoma County, you need to get familiar with that. I know they've just started classes and all kinds of stuff. There's everything that you can imagine that's offered as classes here as far as advancing your education and such. And so I appreciate what you're doing and for opening a facility and making it available to us. Bethany, Councilman Jeff Knapp. Sorry, Jeff, you're wearing purple as well. So, hey, thanks for being here as well, Jeff. I appreciate you being here. Folks, where are the students from the district? Is it called District 21? District 21. District 21, the restaurant group. Are they here? Students?
I think they're in the restaurant.
They're probably in the restaurant. I heard that they had slipped in. They've opened. Is the restaurant open to the public as well?
It's going to be dressed to get out of here. Getting out of here anyway, so we haven't got dinner planned. I know it ain't.
Okay, are those students that are practicing on us, or? Okay, I do appreciate that. That's right here on the back side of the campus, sitting right next to us. It's up this one right here. Okay. I will hang around. Staff, can you hold up your hand again if you're on our staff? Those staff have been gathered around. If you have additional questions and you cannot get to me on it, I want to be able to honor everyone's time. I will hang around for quite a while and we'll answer questions. We will look through the bucket. If we did not answer your question, we will do this. Let me say one quick thing to you. This is an incredibly frustrating season in a million different ways in government. I'm encouraging individuals to not lose hope on America. That we have been in tough times before, but we will be in tough times again. But we can't honor each other, and we can't get this done. I still do believe that God loves His own worldwide, and if there is something significant that's still in the future of the nation. Otherwise, I would just walk away. There's plenty to be done there still, but I'm absolutely focused on what can we do to actually accomplish something and to make forward progress. There's a lot of talk, and there's a lot of press releases, and there's a lot of emails, but my focus is, what can we do that's going to actually help us as a nation to be able to move us forward on that?
Get rid of it.
So
Stick to the Constitution.
continue to do that. So God bless y'all. Thanks for being here.